Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela. Listen, we are about to review season 2, episode 2 of Cross, which is entitled Scatter. Now, we've gone over episode 1, and the Duolingo murder twins are on a murdering spree, child. Anyway, I'm enjoying the soundtrack of this episode because it starts off with Roberta Flack and Where is the Love? And, that had to be hinting on the fact that Aaron just basically told Cross, Alex, bruh, it ain't what you think it's gonna be. I know you went through and I know you did the work, but apparently she's hung up on the fact that he lied to her about a few things. And so she seems to can't get over that kind of stuff. So let's get to episode 2. I got my notes. Ooh, child, it's a lot. And as you all are coming in and as I am getting my notes triggered up to the same thing, please make sure that you all are coming in and please make sure that you are hitting that like button and subscribing if you like what you see. I surely would appreciate that. I put on my phone that Alex is sad. He don't know what to do because he's thinking that he's done all this work, that everyone is just supposed to be okay. But that's a lot to go through. If you look at Erin's point of view, she's with him, she's dating him, and all this other stuff, and she gets caught up in getting enthralled with a serial killer and stuff like that. That's a lot. That is a lot. But what's interesting to me is that she is still working with the family. That's what's interesting to me. And I just don't, I look at that from a perspective. If you don't want me, then don't talk to me. Go ahead and free yourself. And that means that you got to free yourself from his family too. Because there are false things that are happening because Nana and the children are thinking that Aaron wants to be in their family for a long term when really she don't want to be bothered with Alex, so she says. And it's best to go ahead and allow those kids to have, to get a clean break than to then for you to just stay there and have those kids depend on you when you know that you're not going to be in a relationship with their dad. And that's important. You don't think that those kids are going to see that. That's just a me thing. If you're going to break up, if that's a sticking point, if you're going to break up, then break up. Don't leave anybody hanging along because that doesn't work out for either one of you all. Apparently, the daughter is wanting a phone. Dad says she's not supposed to get a phone till she's 12. So they're having dinner and she basically has everybody convince dad to get him a phone. And so Alex is going to get her a phone. Duolingo murder twin is still in the house of that family. Donnie is still in that house of that family. Apparently, it's the mother that he wants. Apparently, it's the mother that he wants. And apparently, the mother works for a bank. And so they have this mother and her family hijacked. And she's supposed to go into the bank. He's giving her all of this direction about you need to go into the bank. You're going to get more orders. He's making sure that she sees pictures of her family that motivates her to do that. So I'm just going to break it down in sections of how we go over there. That motivates him to do that. Apparently, we find out from the Duolingo murder twins that the banker is the one that had been supplying, or she knew that Levig, Levick, the one that the one of the Duolingo murder twins, the lady Rebecca, cut off his fingers. She knew he was trafficking children, and she didn't say anything about it. She knew her name was coming up in the files, and she didn't say anything to it. So Duolingo murder twin Rebecca iced her clean on out of there because she tried to switch information, and it ended up that she didn't realize that Rebecca was working with Duolingo Donnie. She didn't recognize that. And so anybody that has any association with this child trafficking ring, Duolingo twins are just knocking them off. Let me see. So we got that story out. So Craig is still shook. Now I don't know if I talked about it in the last episode, is because no, it's this episode. So her soundtrack, the song that she had playing, because remember I told you she was shooketh. It's a me and my shadow. So something's always looking over her. She just feels like somebody's watching her. So anyway, she forgets her watch. So she goes into the convenience store because I guess she's gonna get a burner phone. Y'all, she hadn't even take that burner phone out the package before a message comes up and tells her, here's an app, and the and the password is whatever it was. And she's freaked out, and I'm freaked out because who knew you were gonna walk into that store, get that particular phone, and you got that particular phone, and that freaked me out. So whoever mastermind is, he is a mastermind. So what happens is she goes in, she gets the phone, she opens up the app, and the app says you have a call in 4 hours and 13 minutes and 9 seconds or something like that. She gets on the phone, and then there's a lady that she knew named Maggie. And so they doing all this little small talk and everything like that. And then she's like, well, Maggie, why did you call me or anything like that? And she's like, I didn't. I was sent a text and said that to email you, or to an email with this information. And then we were supposed to have this call. Then they get into mastermind. And when Maggie finds out what's going on, she's kind of freaking out. And she's like, listen. So Maggie is freaking out. Maggie tells Craig, listen, there was a guy who was keeping the books and stuff like that. His name was Ibrahim. What did she say her name was? Ibrahim. Ibrahim Mustafa. And they both talk about, they both said they fucked. Whatever happened during bad religion, they are messed up. And so there's supposed to be this archivist who has all the information named Ibrahim Mustafa, right? She gives her that information, and she says Maggie tells Craig, listen, you find him, you get the information, and you make sure Mastermind knows that he's don't mess with my kids, because they don't have nothing to do with it, because she's got 2 kids. And before Craig can tell her anything else, child, Maggie prunes herself from the timeline, child. And Craig sees it. So, baby, when I tell you whatever happened in bad religion, it's something serious. People are pruning themselves from the timeline. Oh my gosh. So let's see. I talked about going to the bank. So in the investigation, they discovered that the 3 fingers that Durand got came from Helvig. They confront Helvig about it. He's, because they're like, you knew who the fingers belonged to, and you didn't say anything. And then that's when the security guard was like, oh, well, we didn't want to kind of give out that information because we didn't sure. So Cross was like, we can't help you. We can't do our investigation if you're holding up. If you got any more information, basically tell us. Why is it that you withheld? They were like, well, do you know who Helvig was? And he, again, Durand is lying. I only met him briefly a couple times. Baby, Cross and Craig come in there with all they receipts in a row. They're like, that's not true. You was at a G20 summit with him. You were at a party with him this way. You were at a luncheon with him this way. So Durand had to say, well, he helped me get my workers status changed to essential workers during COVID because his factories were running. And he was trying to say, I had my factories running and the factories were providing food for everybody, trying to make it seem like it was some malevolent stance when it's just greed. You just didn't want the workers to stop. And your workers weren't considered essential workers because at that time, those were the only workers that were supposed to go back and forth to work. Everybody else was supposed to go home. You wanted your workers classified as essential so that they can go to work. John comes by the home because he wants to talk with Nana. And I'm confused. Why is Nana gone like she's gone? Did she know? Because I know Cross came and told her that LaDonna DuVernay is in jail right now, and John knows that that's his mama. But Nana went to see a friend in Virginia who is hurt, and John stops by because he wants to talk with Nana about being dead. Why would she lie to him about being dead? Then he asks Cross, did you know she was still alive? And then Cross has to come up and say, yeah, I knew that she was still alive because she came by the house. Sure. Hold on. Let me see if I can get to that. I wanted to get to that. I want to make sure that I'm not overstepping and stepping. Yeah. So he's mad at that Cross knew about that. So he's not talking with him right now. So let's get to. So they find that they end up getting a lead for the guy who delivered the three fingers, and they realized that he had an accomplice. So they found the accomplice and found out that it was a Dr. Zukov. And they meet with Dr. Zukov, and she says, "Oh, well, this was one of a patient. He really shouldn't have been here, but his name is John Ramos." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So they kept a tail on her, and her silly tail. She goes and yeah, Zukov goes to Chicago. She goes back and forth on this like scavenger hunt or whatever it is to find this one clue to get to this next thing, to get to another clue, to get to this next place, to get to another clue, to get to the next place. And she ends up meeting with Ramos, and we find out that his name is Lincoln. So we also find out John finds out that the prints on the murder weapon belonged to his mom, and he asks Amelin for a copy of the report on his mom. So we get back to Rebecca. Rebecca is with her aunt. She lives with her aunt, her mother's sister. And apparently we find out that Rebecca's mother was a physician. And she was a physician that worked with some children. And she saved some children from Crestwood Industries. So she's looking through the files that they pulled out of Helvig's safe deposit box. Remember, I told you the banker, and they offed her, and they're finding out that one of the children lived. So we're finding out slowly but surely that Helvig had, or Durand had, child labor, illegal child labor. And so he was allowing for, so it looks like a ring where Helvig would essay him, and Durand would work the kids to death. And these kids would be immigrant children or children in Mexican villages and stuff like that, because everybody wants to work, and they're working around machines that they can get their fingers caught in and cut off or whatever. And children shouldn't be working around that kind of heavy machinery. It would be outlawed in the U.S. I don't know what the late child labor laws, are down in Mexico. But I do remember back in the day, particularly it had to be in the 90s, because, in the United States of America, there are a lot of factories closed down. And what I do know, because there was a trade agreement reached, and with that trade agreement, they took off, I think, like the import tax fees or whatever. So a lot of these companies felt like it was going to cost too much to have American workers work these jobs. So they sent all of their factory jobs like down to Mexico or overseas, but they no longer had to worry about that tax. There was some kind of tax that they had. They no longer had to worry about that. So they were able to then take the kids, I mean, excuse me, they were able to take the factory jobs down to Mexico and a lot of things. Because I remember a lot of jobs, particularly like sewing jobs and canning jobs and glass making jobs and making brooms and making straws and all these little different things, particularly here in the South. Those jobs were plentiful. And then they moved those jobs down to Mexico. So a lot of those factories, particularly in these little small rural towns, they just closed down. Wood, puckwood factories, dog food factories like Purina and all them. They moved down to Mexico or South America or overseas because they felt like they were going to get cheaper labor. Because it would be like minimum wage, and then, back then I think it was like insurance or whatever kind of thing. They were trying to. They need Americans to be consumers, but they act like they don't need Americans to be workers. So it makes no sense to me. Craig went back to her boss, Deputy McMillan, and she told him about Maggie's death. And he basically told her, "Bitch, you on your own. I mean, you out here in Nebraska. You can't use none of the resources here at the department. Can't nobody here at the department help you. You're gonna have to figure it out because can nobody help you because if anything comes, that's gonna trigger an investigation, and then we don't want that." And so, who does Craig go get? She got that crazy behind Bobby Trey. Now you remember Bobby Trey was working with the serial killer from episode 1. She done went and got him out of jail to help her find Ibrahim Mustafa, child. And baby, when I tell you, I think Bobby is there for some sort of comic relief because the guy who is playing him is playing him in almost, yeah, almost like a comic relief type situation, but you can still tell that he's crazier than he crazy. So basically that was the episode. So we're starting to get some clarity about what's going on. So we see that basically the Duolingo twins are going around finding the people that were responsible for Rebecca's mom's death and the death and the maiming of the children that apparently worked for Duran and worked for Helvig. So they are understanding that it's a big, huge operation. These people are well high up. And so the Duolingo twins are working to get justice for the death of her mom. So this is going to be quite interesting case to see whether or not, because like I said, last season we had two different types of things going on. As far as investigations, we had the investigation going on in the serial killer, and then we had the investigation going on in the death of Cross's wife. This season, we have the Duolingo deaths. That's the main investigation. And then we've got Craig's little situation with true bad religion. And then we also have John with his mother being arrested for murder, and then him having to have the revelation that his mother is alive and he didn't know, and he's having to deal with all of those feelings in regards to that. I meant to tell you they followed the therapist Zuvik, and they ended up seeing her with Ramos, but Ramos ran. When Ramos ran, he took them to his his underground lair under the subway. They find his altar. They find all of these little different things. And right before he left, Ramos Lincoln blows up the layer. So, and that's where they find a lot of information that leads them to find that the next coordinates that they think that Lincoln's going to be. So, I just wanted to make sure that we got all of that. So the Duolingo twins, murder twins, they go through Helvig's files and they find that one of the children that worked at the factory is still alive. So they're on a hunt to find that particular person. And that's the end of the episode. The last thing they ended on this episode was that Craig went to the prison where Bobby Trey was at, and she got him out of prison. Y'all, what do y'all think about this episode? I will tell you, this episode is not as dark. This season doesn't appear to be, it's nasty, but it's not as dark. You know, last season, everything felt dark. Even from when you looked at the lighting and how they were portraying everything seemed dark and everything. But now everything, we kind of see the Duolingo twins and you kind of root for them a little bit. I don't want to root for the murderers, but but we rooting for the Duolingo twins because it's like it's some kind of quest in their heads. It's an honorable quest. I don't know. But I am more intrigued about what Agent Craig did that Mastermind is coming after her in regards to this operation called Bad Religion. That's the thing that's dark in this episode. And that's the only thing that right now is keeping me grounded, that there is a mystery. I'm just thinking that we're just getting too much information from the Duolingo twins to the point where it's I don't want to say boring, but it's just like predictable. I wish we didn't know what their motives were. We, if we just like, if they were just like stopping child rings or something like that, SA child rings, that's one thing, but we kind of figure out her motive. I don't know why Donnie is doing it, but we see what her motive is. And I wish we didn't visually see them. I wish we were able to, I don't know. I just think that there's some information that we have. The stakes don't seem, I'm not feeling those stakes with Bobby Trey in the mix because he's like a wild card. I think that there's going to be something else going on in regards to that, but we will see. I'm going to go to the 3rd episode and then I'm going to do my review and we will be caught up for the next season because I don't know what day it comes out since I'm a little bit behind, and I apologize for that. All right, people, we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, what do you all think about episode 2 and the revelations that we have seen in episode 2? We're going to go into episode 3. This is a good episode. The soundtrack is what caught me on this episode. I will say that I am a little disappointed in Aaron. Like I said, if you don't want him, then don't talk to him. Don't be doing no booty calls and all this other stuff, confusing the issue. And if you want Trevor, then you need to go. You need to solidify whatever that is with Trevor. You need to go on and solidify it because right now, it's not working. To me, it's not healthy for you to always be on beck and call with his family, and it's not good for him because there was a point in this episode where Elle called herself being upset that Cross told his daughter that Elle wasn't going to be coming around or that she was too busy to shop for the phone, and Elle got a little upset with that. But like I said, child, you need to figure it out. Y'all need to figure it out. All right, people, we do this every week. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video if you care. Y'all, please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell a coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye-bye.